Hello and welcome to the No Huddle Podcast. I'm going to apologize right away. I am fairly under the weather, so it's going to be a little bit of a shorter pod. And as much as I want to do the week 11 reaction, because there's so much to talk about, I already have like 2 pages of notes. I'm only through one game. That'll have to be later in the week when I'm feeling a bit better. So good news is 2 podcast episodes this week. Bad news is right now we have to come up with an alternative. And what I have done, I had a lot of fun with this when I did this about a month ago. I really love doing the tiers for week 7, and I want to come back to it again. It's been a little over a month, and with how crazy the NFL is, I feel like tiers and power rankings, which I'm usually not the biggest fan of, I kind of find them very obsolete and dumb. But right in the current NFL right now, there's so much debate. I feel like every power rankings I see, I either come away like I fully agree or everything is wrong, and it's so much fun. So I'm gonna do my week 12 tiers. It's probably the last tiers before we head into the postseason. So let's just hop right into it. By the way, there's gonna be a lot of edits in this podcast. I have to keep clearing out my throat, coughing. So apologies about that. Let's start with the bottom of the tiers. Once again, I had bottom feeders wrote, and last time to this time I wrote, "Is it April yet?" Because that is very much the case. But all these teams are very much looking forward to the NFL draft. I have the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Jets, the Browns, the Saints, the Cardinals. All of these are not not new entries. These were mainstays in week 7. But new to the list of these, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Commanders. The Dolphins and the Commanders, by the way, special shout out to them by single-handedly making sure that football will not be enjoyed in Madrid, Spain for the foreseeable future. Because the poor fans over there that had to sit through and watch that game, I'm very, very sorry. And NFL international tickets are expensive. So some NFL fans probably dropped like $500 on those tickets just to watch just Marcus Mariota and Tua Tagovailoa go at it. Also, by the way, never put Tua in front of a microphone again. Holy shit. I don't know. If you're the owner, just take fines. I don't know. Find any way to get out of a Tua interview or press conference. Just, it's such a mess. Next tier, I have Doom and Gloom. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Atlanta Falcons. For the Bengals, this was a team that like, the main reason I wrote Doom and Gloom for these tiers is because it's related to the Bengals. It sucks because if you look at the last few games, they're getting Joe Burrow back, like in a week or two, or they could be. I don't know if they're even going to bother bringing him back now, because if you look, it blew a lead to the Jets. They get allowed a 17-point comeback to Justin Fields a few weeks ago, who, by the way, has now been benched for Tyrod Taylor again, and that's a loss that kills them. They gave the game away against the Bears to a 60-yard touchdown to Colson Loveland 2 weeks ago. And then, of course, they get blown up by the Steelers. It's a team that sucks. If they just held on to those 2 wins, let alone the Steelers game, they'd be in a really good spot for Joe Burrow to come back and potentially lead this team to the playoffs. But now I don't even see a reason for him to come back. Trey Hendrickson's going to walk at the end of this cycle for a third-round pick, too. It's just doom and gloom. And Jamar Chase got suspended, by the way, because he spit on Jalen Ramsey for no freaking reason. Yikes. The Atlanta Falcons, I have in this tier. Penix, but we know, just got ruled out for the season in all likelihood. So it'll be Kirko Chains all the way throughout. And I'm sorry, I just don't have that much confidence in Kirko Chains. And the gloom for them is that they don't own their first-round pick. It goes to the Los Angeles Rams by way of one of the dumbest draft day trades I've ever seen. Why the hell would you give up a first and a second for a late first? Even if James Pierce is a great player, that's just such a dumb move fundamentally that I don't understand. If you look at most late draft trade-ups for anything between the mid-20s to 30s, you'll see like their second-round pick go out and maybe a fourth, sometimes a third, like if you saw what the Giants gave up to get Jackson Dart in the same draft. Or like when the Niners moved up to get Ayuk from 31 to 25 like 5 years ago. I know that's a bad reference. That was from 5 years ago. But that was just like that fit that criteria perfectly. I think they gave up a fourth to jump the Packers and take Ayuk, which is how the Packers ended up with Jordan Love, by the way. Very crazy story there. Yeah, that's a criminal move by the GM. That dude needs the can. Raheem Morris needs the can. I've never liked the Raheem Morris hire to begin with. I thought that like if you just look at him as like a leader of men, I never got that impression. And I never really liked his schemes anyways. So moving on, I got the I don't know what to do with you tier. This was the I don't know, I need to see more tier last time. And there's less teams, but what's crazy is it's week 12, So the fact that we even have teams in a tier of I don't know what to do with your, I need to see more is crazy because we have seen a lot. We have seen 3 months out of these teams. And even after 3 months, I have no idea what the hell to think about them. I have the Dallas Cowboys, who just got a big win on Monday night against the Raiders. Absolutely cooked them. I don't know, maybe they used Jedi wizard powers to convince him to just not run the football either because Ashton Genty had 2 carries for the majority of that game. I think he finished with 6. That they added Quinn Williams. They added Demarion Overshown to that defense after the bye. They added their rookie Siobhan Ravel, who I really loved out of the draft. He was coming off an ACL tear. He made his debut last week as well, or this week. And I said after the Cowboys trade for Quinn Williams, I like this move for the future. I didn't know how much it would help them currently, but their defense already looks a lot better with him out there. He got a sack and a half. Looked like the whole D-line got rejuvenated. And I didn't realize that they were getting Overshown back this quickly. I remember his injury being horrible, like in graphic. So for him to come back sooner than I expected is great. He was one of my favorite players when he was healthy. So those two can make that defense like not the worst unit in the NFL. And that offense with Dak Prescott playing the way he is, with George Pickens and CD playing the way they are, especially Pickens, he is going to earn himself a $30 million bag, even with all the off-the-field issues. He's so good. Will he keep up that production after the season? That's a great question. Will he get his way out of town right away? In all likelihood, yes. But, hey, we'll find out then. Moving off the Cowboys, we got the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers suffers like a broken hand in that Bengals blowout game, or like partially broken in his left hand. It's a whole mess. And, most people would see that and be like, okay, he's out for a few games. But Steelers playing the Bears this week. So you already know Aaron Rodgers is trying to rush back and make sure he can stay the Bears' daddy for one last time. It's kind of a beautiful thing. So we'll see how that goes over. If not, I fully believe this team is like capable enough with Mason Rudolph. But if you're just going back to week 7, I had them way higher in the tiers. I don't know what to feel about them. It's such a mess because it's the classic Steeler thing of they always play down or up to competition. This is the same team that in the Unk Bowl let Joe Flacco go for 400 yards and then beat the Indianapolis Colts. Like there's such a variable with this team that I don't really know what to do with them. I have the Jags next. This is a team that I had gone on the podcast and I'd said probably my worst take of the year was saying that the Jags are a very scary team after they beat the Chiefs. But then last week, I looked like a freaking genius for having that take nearly a month and a half ago because they blew out the Chargers. So I don't know what the hell to do with them. When their defense is healthy and firing in all cylinders, turnover machine, they held Justin Herbert to 80 passing yards, which was crazy. And their run game was going, and it looked like the Jags team that I saw at the beginning of the year. So with the Jags, I don't know. I kind of just want to see a bit more when it comes to this team. Which, you know what? If you want to call that unfair, then sure. I just also hate their quarterback play. I'm not the biggest fan of Trevor Lawrence. And I feel like the best games out of him are when he has like the Jalen Hurts 150 yards game, no touchdowns, no picks, and just stays away from the ball. That's usually how they end up winning games. So, and then the last team I have on here is Minnesota. 9. That's got to be one of the dumbest quarterback nicknames I've ever seen. And then I realized that he came up with it himself. And he talked about it in like a post-game presser. He's like, sometimes 9 has to come out. Following that up with whatever the hell that was against the Bears. Not great. That was such a really piss-poor quarterback performance. And the fact that they probably should have won that game had it up in for a bad special teams kickoff coverage at the end of the game is baffling to me. And that's like why with Minnesota, I feel like it's so difficult to quit them, even if their quarterback play is, let's just say shaky at best. Because that defense can force turnovers. They can make huge plays. Like I love Flores, of course, as a DC. All those blitzes, any young quarterback that they play is going to struggle against them. Their edge rushers are I love everything about this Minnesota defense. And their offense, of course, is uber talented as hell. You have Kevin O'Connell, Addison, and Jefferson. And Jefferson, by the way, he has not been able to get it clicking with McCarthy at all, which is weird because he's been able to make it click with literally every quarterback he's had in Minnesota. So even Nick Mullins, I think he's like kind of a demon with Nick Mullins. I remember seeing the stat that he has like 120 yards per game with Nick Mullins. So I thought that'd be kind of fun to share. With Minnesota, just like if you can get B quarterback play out of JJ McCarthy, then they're going to be a lock to make a run here. But if they continue getting D play out of JJ McCarthy, they're going to be picking top 15 in the draft, and they got to figure out what to do at quarterback. It's gonna be a huge next 7 games for Minnesota. Even if them making the playoffs won't be possible because their division is like so stacked. We'll see what the hell happens with them. I guess I shouldn't say make impossible. Like it's still possible because their team is still really good on paper. So I have the next tier, rubber meets the road. So these are teams with really good records that now have a pretty difficult schedule coming up, and they have to prove themselves because their records are great, but the way they've been winning these games is not so great. I have the Chicago Bears in this tier, 7-3 right now, current leaders of the NFC North. The Eagles Bears alliance is like one of the stupidest and funniest things I've seen on Twitter, because the Bears had helped out the Eagles by beating every single one of their division opponents, and the Eagles helped the Bears out in a major way by beating the Lions, and now and beating the Packers, which all of that conspired to the Bears taking the NFC North and the Eagles being the 1 seed right now. So that alliance is funny. It is also an alliance that tragically will be broken on Black Friday of all things, which is kind of poetic if you think about it. So we'll see about that. With Chicago, like Caleb Williams, it's funny because I gave him a lot of shit his first year because he was finding a way to put himself in really bad situations when it comes to sacks. He had this thing where he just wasn't letting go of the ball, wasn't ripping it. It seemed like he would be impossible to put a nice solid system around him and just let him play within it. But this year, all of those annoying tendencies have seemed to help him a lot. His like ability to evade sacks now, where it's kind of like the same thing of he's holding the ball and dancing around the pocket, but he's just better at it. He's smarter at it, and he's preventing the team from like a few sacks a game. And they're really fun plays to watch, even if they're incompletions. He of course is like he throws such a beautiful ball. He makes plays that like only a few other quarterbacks in the entire league can do. So the potential with Caleb is undeniable, even if he is a frustrating player to watch at times. But with the Bears, like I usually don't love their running game, because especially when it's DeAndre Swift heading in and not monogamy, Monungai. There we go. When it's Monungai heading it, not monogamy. When Monungai is heading that running game, I like it a bit more. But I don't know. They've been winning these games super close at the end. They have 5 quote unquote game winning drives out of Caleb. I would say 4 because, they had to get 3 yards on the last game winning drive to set them up for the field goal. Not necessarily the most inspiring drive, but hey, it worked out. Can't hate on it too much. So, and their schedule is pretty brutal coming up. So we're definitely going to see if they're really that good or if they've just been pulling off a few fluky wins. The Panthers, I feel like this is the same takeaway everyone's had about Carolina for the last 5 weeks, where it's just like, are you good? Are you not good? Are you good? Are you not good? I would venture to say that they're a very, very solid team. I'm very much down the middle when it comes to Carolina. Bryce Young had 450 yards last game and broke Cam Newton's single game passing record. I don't think that play is going to continue, but hey, I could be wrong, I guess. But for Carolina, I mean, that ground game is the foundation of everything, and they can get Rico Dowdle going in any game. They're always dangerous. And for that defense, if they can just like be solid and let the ground game really take over, that's when Carolina's at their scariest. But if it comes down to Bryce Young throwing the ball and putting the defense in bad spots, and the defense not being able to get a stop, and then which leads to more Bryce Young passes, that's when the game really can get out of hand for Carolina, and that's how they lose to teams like the Saints. So, I really am curious to see them play my Niners on Monday night. I will be in attendance for that game, so that'll be fun. And then I also have the Chargers here. The Chargers, I think I would have had way higher on these tiers before last week, but it looks rough. That Jacksonville game was truly awful. They had 80 yards out of Herbert and 20 yards out of Kamani Vidal, their number 1 running back for the day. Combining 100 yards between your primary quarterback and running back, not the greatest. It's quite rough. And this is a thing where it's like, oh, Joel will be back in a few weeks, then I definitely would have them way higher. But we know he's going to be out for the year. We already knew Slater was going to be out for the year. And Herbert right now is by far the most pressured quarterback in the league, the most hits taken. And it's not because he's taking forever to get rid of the ball. It's because that offensive line is genuinely that bad. When they played on a Sunday night against the Steelers, all the PFF ranks were like listed on the bottom. And I think that was a lot of people's first insight into just how bad this Chargers offensive line is. Like genuinely nothing but 35 out of 36 for all of the linemen. So for the Chargers, it seems like if they go against a team with any pass rush, it's going to be a rough day for them. And they need Justin Herbert to just be Superman every single game. And even if he has a B game, this Chargers team just can't overcome it. Usually their defense in the past has been particularly good, and for this year they have been too. But that last game against Jacksonville just terrifies the crap out of me, because if they're going to start to get run on like that, then I don't see a path for the Chargers to keep winning games. Next tier, I have the only tier with just one team in it, and I because I wanted to put let's laugh at the Kansas City Chiefs while we still can. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs in this tier, they are 5-5. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty low on the Chiefs comparatively. I still see people having them at like the 10th spot. And to those people, I think that they're either just blinded by the last few years or they're just biased as hell. I have no idea. Because watching this Chiefs team, they're just not that good right now. And it's something where, like, at the beginning of the year, I was giving them crap for it, but I would always say, but it's the Kansas City Chiefs that are going to turn it around. And then we got to that like insane winning streak they got into, and they won 4 straight games. They shut out the Raiders 31-0. The Raiders don't cross the ball midfield, and for the whole game. Like it was one of the most dominating wins I've ever seen in my life, and it's kind of crazy to think how far removed we are from that right now. Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton, they have all these weapons. Travis Kelce, and yet the offense is just flat. They don't make explosive plays, and it feels like the explosive plays aren't as frequent as they frankly should be when you have that much speed at the receiver spot and as much talent as they do. They obviously can't run the ball. Kareem Hunt alone is brutal. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco is bad, but you know what? At least one of them has some fresh legs. But just Kareem Hunt and a little bit of Brashad Smith, the 7th round pick, even though I think he's a really talented receiving back, it gives you just nothing in the run game. And I think it's going to haunt the Chiefs a bit, not trading a 3rd round pick for Breece Hall, especially when Breece Hall's playing really, really good football. So for Kansas City, I'm going to delve into this more later in the later pod when I talk about the Chiefs-Broncos game more in depth. But just like off the watching the game and the preliminary research I've done on it, it's just if their offense gives them anything, man. Like, because their defense played the game well enough. Of course, it sucks for them that they give up the 3rd and 15 to Bo Nix, and then that deep shot to go win it to Troy Franklin. At the end of the day, the defense gave the Chiefs the ball back, 19-19, with 5 minutes left and all the timeouts. I was watching that game. I was like, okay, yeah, they're gonna win it. It's time, right? The Chiefs are actually just gonna lock in, and here we go. They're in the exact spot that they'd want to be, and they go 3 and out. And like they take a sack at the end of that drive. It's just everything here is un-Chiefs-like to the biggest, highest degree. And at this point, it's week 10. Or not even week 10, sorry. It's week 11. They've played 10 games. So I think that's just the identity of this team. Now, here they could go, of course, if they beat Indianapolis on Sunday, I think you can tell me to shut my ass up. And a lot of what I said will be thrown out the window because that would be such a huge win. But I just don't see it. I think they're going to get crushed on Sunday because Indianapolis football right now is that good, even though they're like 3-point favorites. So we'll see if KC can turn things around. Again, if you look at their schedule, I just don't see many gimmies either. So it's a mess for them. Mahomes isn't playing good football. The Chiefs' offense as a whole is just... And I think sometimes it's just as simple as this is what happens when you don't have a run game. Like... You make things infinitely harder for your quarterback, for your offensive line, when it feels like every situation the defense knows they can tee off for a pass rush. And those tackles, by the way, are just... Josh Simmons is good. Like, that offensive line, for the most part, is pretty good, but I still hate the right tackle, Jawan Taylor, and he was getting feasted on by Nick Bonito all game. I just don't like what I see out of Kansas City right now. Next here, blind faith. This is where I guess you could say my bias is kicking. And I feel like for one of them, I think most people would be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the other one would be like, wait, what? So I have the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans in this tier. Again, I don't think these tiers are in like any particular order. If they are, I would specify it. For the Ravens, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. That offense isn't clicking to the degree I'd want it to right now, especially considering how much of a struggle that game was against Cleveland. How Myles Garrett, by the way, who is, in my opinion, having like the best defensive season I can remember in the last few years. Or not even the last few years, sorry, like the last 10 years. He's on pace for like 25 and a half sacks. He has 10 sacks in his last 3 games. He is unbelievable. And what he was doing to the Ravens on Sunday was just so much fun to watch, even if the game itself was quite horrible to watch. Give the Ravens credit for honestly finding a way to win that game. It feels like the Ravens losing in Cleveland is an annual tradition. So even though it wasn't a pretty win, even if they needed a 35-yard fake tush push out of Mark Andrews to get it done, they got it done. So I like what I'm seeing out of the Ravens. They're 5. I think they moved to 500 now for the first time, I think, all year. So huge momentum coming in for Baltimore. I think that offense is going to pick up. And my big concern of the team was defense. It looked genuinely that awful. And it seems like they did what they did last year, which is, turn everything around at midseason. Because that defense has now been a positive for the last few weeks. And I think it's going to stay that way because there's so much talent on that defense side of the ball. Love what I'm seeing out of the Ravens. And now let's get to this other side. You might see the Texans and be like, why the hell are the Texans on your tiers? And they're probably going to get cooked on Thursday too. But when it comes to Texans, I have said this point repeatedly. I think they have like the best defense in football, probably outside of Cleveland. So just competent offensive play. That's all they need, and they would be one of the scariest teams in the entire AFC. Just competent. And you know what? General Mills has been giving them competent enough offensive play. We saw it 2 weeks ago when they came back against the Jaguars down like 18. And then we saw it last week against the Titans, which was for some reason a freaking slug out. But they were able to get a game-winning drive with the field goal at the end. So even though this offense looks awful, for lack of a better word, if they can just take I don't even know like how else to put it, just average, man. Average to slightly below average, and this team will easily make the playoffs. But if they get that again is beyond me. Hopefully, I know CJ Stroud will be out this week, but because they're on that short week and he's coming off the concussion. But whenever Stroud's back, hopefully we can see the Texans sort of return to like average. Just let that defense cook, man. Just get out of the way of that defense. And they're going to do unspeakable things to the other team because their edge rushers are literally the best in football, and Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. Like, this team has potential. So that's why I have them high up in the tiers. I can get a ton of flack for that. I think, and you know what? It'd be 100% fair. But this is just my gut shot. When I see defense playing like that, when they tee off the way they do, I'm going to rank them really high. Next, I'm not moved yet, but I could be. So the team I actually had number 2 on the tiers the first time I did this is here. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here, it's been a rough few weeks for him. Baker, ever since like starting off as the MVP favorite and like playing unbelievable football, has frankly fallen off a cliff. It was ever since that Lions game where he looked really bad, and ever since then he hasn't been the same guy. He's throwing a lot of inaccurate balls. He had a nice few plays with his legs though against Buffalo on Sunday. Sorry again, I'm spacey here. But if we can get back to MVP Mayfield, the Bucs are going to be surging back up and look like one of the best teams in football. But if we can get away from the inconsistencies at a quarterback, that'd be huge for them. And this was a really, really tough stretch for him. We knew heading in, we knew this would be like the test to see how good the Bucs are. And frankly, they haven't passed those tests at all. They let Josh Allen have like this insane 6-touchdown game that put him back in like the MVP race. So, and then now they have the Rams coming up on Sunday. If the Bucs can beat the Rams, that'd be such a huge win. Frankly, I do doubt it. But if we can get back to the Baker we saw at the beginning of the year, if that offense could heal up, maybe get Mike Evans back towards the end of the season. And if that defense can play like they were before, getting cooked by Josh Allen and co., I think that we can start to see the Tampa team we saw at the beginning of the year. Detroit, I have up next. Just a truly awful game to watch on Sunday night. It was probably like on paper the second biggest game of the week, and I wasn't even going to talk about it on the No Huddle pod because I just didn't want to. It was such an annoying ass, boring game to watch. And I feel like my opinion on the Eagles hasn't changed from watching that game. We'll talk about them in a bit. But for Detroit, Jared Goff played awful. You could tell that he is not used to those bad weather conditions, that shitty wind that they had in that game. He went 14 of 35. The Lions go 0 for 5 on fourth down. A hot mess that game was. And they're 6-4 now. I think they're either out of the playoffs or they're like the 7th seed right now, which is crazy to think about. They still have so much talent on paper. They still have such a good offensive line. They still have Gibbs and Monty in that run game. They just need like good play out of Goff like they've been getting the last 2 years. But whenever he struggles, that whole team really grinds to a halt. And I'm concerned by how dominant that Eagles front looked against them, because that was rough. And I don't feel confident at all if Detroit has to head into Philly for like a potential NFC Championship or even a playoff game. So a really rough game on the lines. It feels like it's weird with Detroit. They've had a few of these games where they just look like they got dominated on every side of the ball, because we saw against Kansas City near the beginning of the year where they just got cooked. We saw against Green Bay, they just get cooked. And now they lost to Philadelphia in this one. So it's not great out of Detroit at all. So I need to see the Lions get back to old form really badly before I can start to have faith in them again. Also, by the way, Dan Campbell and that whole thing of like taking over the offensive play calling, I would presume he is not like actually like the main play caller. I don't think he's like the OC, but if I were to guess, like they have him like make just like final calls on plays. Like the OC says like, hey, I want to run this pass play out of this set. And he probably just says like, okay, yeah, cool. I'm assuming he's not like, dialing up everything, because if he is, that's a crazy ass adjustment to make mid-season. I'm curious to see how that evolves. Oh, that fourth down efficiency was so bad. Anyways, moving on, we have the Green Bay Packers, who got a huge stabilizing win that they desperately needed against the Giants. And Jameis Winston played like competent football too, so it wasn't a gimme at all. So for Green Bay, again, when I did like a little short about this, I talked about them on the podcast last week, so I'm not going to touch on it too much here. But there's just so much talent on paper for that roster. And if Jordan Love just gives them consistent enough play, we know that defense can eat. We know they can hunt. And frankly, that whole team has just been so off and on. If they can stabilize towards the end of the year, they're going to be one of the most dangerous teams. All right. Next here. Gotta love having QB1 back. This, I have the Niners, the 49ers. Of course, we got Brock Purdy back this on Sunday, and he was awesome. He was ripping the ball. I forgot how much fun Brock Purdy is to watch like on the broadcast, and even more so after the game on film, because he just does so many like awesome, subtle things that you can't really see during the game. Like he had this on his first like primary drive, he had this beautiful little read to Juwan Jennings, and if you like watching on the broadcast, I'm like, oh, the Cardinals just forgot about him. They left him wide open. But then you go back and you watch it on tape, and you see like Brock Purdy, he first reads this hook defender. He like keeps his eyes right on the middle of the field, so he waits for that hook defender to be like slightly in the wrong position. Then he peeks over at like this backside corner and checks to see if his hips are flipped. And turns out they are, like, and he's holding him on Ricky Pearsall running deep. And that's how Juwan Jennings just pops wide open. And it's something where it's like, I feel like the average ball watcher would just be like, oh, Shanahan schemed up that guy open. But in reality, that was all Brock. Brock holding that one hook defender, and then seeing the fact that safety got taken on the Cardinals coverage. It was just it's so fun to watch. I know YouTube is not friendly at all when it comes to breaking down film. I know how much of a mess it is. I wish I could do that and just break down film on here, but it sucks that I can't. Because Brock Purdy film was so much fun to watch. I could watch that shit for ages. But anyways, Niners offense puts up over 40 points for the first time in nearly 2 years. It looked so good. It looked effortless. It looked borderline like 2023, which is a testament to how good the Niners played last game and how bad the Cardinals are and why they're very much in that top tier of truly awful teams. They suck. Even though Jacoby did put up a record for most completions in an NFL game, which probably won't get touched anytime soon because 47 completions is absurd. The big thing that holds his team back and that holds them back from like being a real Super Bowl contender is the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, everyone knows those two. But the Niners losing Michael Williams a few weeks ago, I think really puts a cap on how well we can defend the run, which, if you know postseason football, running the ball is often like the most important thing. Really, really concerned about that for the long term. But for the short term, this offense can 100% put up enough points to cover up for the defense's flaws. And hopefully the hope is just the young guys gel. They take this time to learn, they get better, and we'll see. And hopefully the Niners get hot later in the postseason. Next team I have is Buffalo. This is more metaphorically after the Dolphins game where it was just like, oh my God, what the hell happened? Good to see the Bills and get like a classic Josh Allen game. It feels like it had been a minute. I want to say since like week 1 where he truly dominated a game. Granted, he had a truly awful interception in this one too, where I just don't know what the hell his head was at. But more than makes up for it with 6 total touchdowns. My dumbass benched him for Drake Maye in fantasy. I don't want to talk about it. That's unfortunate. Lost me the game too. But man, with the Bills, they're going to need superhero Josh Allen if they want to go on a run here, which is weird because that's not what I've said about the Bills the last few years. I thought that the Bills last few years with Ken Dorsey were like, I thought they were built for sustained success, and they made 2 deep runs to the divisional round and then, of course, the conference championship game. Both were heartbreaking losses to KC. But because Josh Allen didn't have to do the Superman stuff, they could build an offense that revolved around like running the ball with James Cook, simple passes, and it worked. But this year, this team is just not built for that. For one, their defense is just nowhere near as good as it was the last few years. Because whether you want to say that's because of injuries or like simple stuff like Matt Milano going from one of the best linebackers in the league to this very oft injured, not so great anymore linebacker. And frankly, the whole defense is just a lot younger, a lot less big names. Of course, we have Ed Oliver being out for a while here is not great for them. Buffalo, they're going to just need Superman. And they're going to need the game where Josh Allen flings it like crazy, maybe has a dumb interception or 2, but makes up for it because they put up 40. Because they can't defend the run at all. It's crazy. I don't know. This has been a problem with Buffalo for the entire year, and them not making any moves at the deadline to address it was kind of crazy to me, even with the insane inflated prices that we saw at the deadline. Just like any good interior defense tackle would have been like just great. Any run stuffer. It doesn't have to be anyone who's like particularly good at pass rusher. Just like one guy who can stop the run. Because they made Sean Tucker look like freaking Barry Sanders. He was dominant in that game. I don't know if any psychopaths started Sean Tucker, but if they did, great for them. Because he looked so good in that game. And frankly, they're going to keep making running backs look really good. And they're going to do it the whole year. So if Buffalo wants any shot at this thing, it's going to be through Josh Allen and Josh Allen only. Next tier, which this tier I think speaks to the parity of the league, which is I have a tier named Just Let the Defense Do Everything, and they are the second highest tier in all of the NFL. So whether you want to say it's because every NFL team is pretty good this year, for the most part, except for like the weird like shitty 14 teams, or if you want to say that's because every NFL team is bad this year, or like not particularly great. First team I have on here is Seattle, because man, I love that Seattle defense so much. It's genuinely terrifying to have both Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and DeMarcus Lawrence on the same defensive line. Just such bullies on the interior of the ball or interior and defense side of the ball. It's so much fun to watch them go kill a guy. And they, of course, had that insane blowout win against Cardinals where they went up 35-0 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. And then they held Matthew Stafford and the Rams like 130 yards passing. And that defense had more than enough for them to win that game. But the reason why they're in this tier, having Sam Darnold throw 4 interceptions is scary. It's terrifying. It is the main thing that can hold this team back from a deep playoff run. Because on paper, there's nothing else that would do it. Their offensive line, while it's not great, it's much better than it was the last few years. They got phenomenal news, by the way, on Gray Zabel, who looks to be day-to-day and did not suffer an ACL tear like a lot of people were fearing. He was like one of the most obvious like home run hits in the entire draft. He's been really good for them. Like that offensive line has like been capable enough. They of course have the best receiver in the entire league right now with JSN. So the only thing that could really kill Seattle right now is if Darnold goes full Darnold. I don't know how else to put it. Goes full pumpkin mode, and he absolutely did. He went deer in the headlights, seeing ghosts, whatever phrase you want to use. Watching his interceptions on film this week were insane. Frankly, like any of them where if he had not been playing so well this whole year, he could have gotten benched because they were that bad. And the fact that it was a 2-point game with a chance to win it. testament to how good that defense is. So for the Seahawks, you got to hope it's a blip. It's just like he got crushed by a team he's got crushed by last year. You move on from it, bury the tape. Ernest Jones's quotes post game were kind of insane to me. I've never seen a guy say that shit to the media like that. We of course had Terrell Owens crying, saying that's my quarterback. Seeing Ernest Jones like go on a freaking rant about how anyone dare not criticize the Jesus Sam Darnold was interesting to me. And I guess, hey, you could. I was watching First Things First today, and they're like, hey, you can pull that out one time, sure, but don't make sure you better pray Sam Darnold doesn't fuck up again. All right, moving on. I have the Denver Broncos, which, by the way, I loved Denver heading into this year, especially because they poached two of my favorite Niners of all time, and Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. But to think they'd be a top 5 team heading into this late into the season is bonkers, because they're genuinely like a really, really good football team. Of course, that defense, I think right now they're the number 1 scoring defense. I had them as the 3rd best defense in all football. And they just have so many killers on that side of the ball. They don't even have Patrick Surtain. He was out for this Chiefs game, and it didn't matter. They still absolutely locked up. I love what Vance Joseph is doing. I know that he was a head coach before, and it didn't work out, but I would love to see Vance Joseph get another shot somewhere else, because he's a hell of a play caller. And he was calling up some beautiful blitzes. Their nickel corner ended up getting 2 sacks on Mahomes. Dre Greenlaw was all over the field. You could tell he wanted that game real bad. They didn't have Singleton for this game either, so the fact that they were able to come away with this win was so impressive. And they just get it done every time in the clutch. Their defense always finds a way to make a stop. Bo Nix always finds a way to get his team in a position for a field goal or a touchdown or whatever they need. It feels like he's always there. And this is probably the best game he's played from start to finish the whole year, because this whole year has been carried by his insane fourth quarters, and the goofy 3 quarters he has at the beginning of the game just served to hamper his team. But this time, played pretty well from start to finish. They can just keep getting consistent production like that out of him, alongside all the clutch stuff. This Broncos team is going to be real scary. I have the Eagles next here. I know this is probably a little low, but one, it doesn't fit my tier name for the next one. So that's the dumb reason for it. But the real reason I have is that I just really hate Kevin Patullo's play calling. I'm not going to go into the rant of Kevin Patullo again. I think I already have 2 shorts made on Patullo. I think every time I've talked about the Eagles on this podcast 4 times, and all 4 times I've included a 5-minute rant on Patullo. What I'm going to say is that he turns an offense that should be a Ferrari with how many weapons they have and runs it like a Honda Civic, which infuriates the hell out of me. The fact that they need this defense to put up insane performances every week to win games is beyond me. But anyways, that defense. Jalen Phillips looks to be one of the better trade deadline deals of this year. He has been awesome. And frankly, we know he's really good whenever he's healthy. It's just that it seems that he always gets injured. Hopefully for Philadelphia, he stays healthy, because he seems to be like that final piece that they needed to really make that defense dominant again. I just talked about the Eagles a bunch on the last pod. If you want to check that out, there's like a full clip I did of just that, discussing the Packers-Eagles game. And I've talked about the Eagles plenty, so I'm just going to move on. Last tier I have the MVP homes. I don't know how else to describe it. I have the Los Angeles Rams with Matthew Stafford playing just amazing football this year. Not even his like greatest game against the Seahawks, but they didn't need it to be, because Sam Darnold gifted them the ball 4 times. But for the Rams, man, sometimes it's just as simple as you have really good quarterback play, and your front four on that defensive side is just that damn good. Like, their secondary is just not good. It's Emmanuel Forbes is like their primary starting corner in the big 2-5, and it's working because you have Jared Verse, Byron Young, you have Kobe Turner, you have Braden Fisk. It's just like they're so stacked on that side of the ball, and they're getting competent linebacker play, which is really rare out of the Rams. You know, I think for the 5 Rams fans out there, they can acknowledge that's just not something that Sean McVay and this team prioritizes. So usually that's a big weakness for them. It's why they struggle against the 49ers every year, because Shanahan just loves attacking those linebackers. But getting decent play out of Landman's been huge for them. I like their safeties too. I really like Kitchens. And again, like Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, and Devontae Adams. By the way, one of the more underrated moves of this entire offseason was swapping out Cooper Kupp, who for one, has fallen off. But besides that, even if he hadn't, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp had the same playing styles, and it was redundant. And it felt like when you put one in the slot, you were taking away what the other was best at. So again, even if Cooper Kupp is was still a beast, swapping him out for Devontae Adams and making it so that they have this literal perfect pairing of Devontae Adams on the X and Puka in like the Y, the Z, wherever the hell they need him to be, is so good. And it's really what's taken this Rams offense to another level, even though I feel like their running game hasn't been as good as it was before. Next, I have the Patriots. Drake Maye, has been so good this year. I was glazing him a ton on last week's pod, but I will glaze him again. He is the best deep ball thrower in the entire NFL right now with subpar receiving threats. His receivers just aren't that great. His offensive line is still very like in between, and yet he has that offense running so efficiently. And in large part is due to because his insanely high completion percentage. Whenever they need a play, he can always make it. And something that's really underrated about him, because he's frankly so good at so many other things, is how well he navigates the pocket. It's like really fun for me to watch. That's the nerdy shit I love. Like just seeing the way he like just so elegantly like dances around like an edge rusher coming at his face. Pause. Interior defensive lineman, just doesn't matter. He always finds a way, and it's so cool. He's been so good for them. And if he continues to play like this, the Patriots are going to be terrifying, and they will be the 1 seed because of how easy that schedule is. So, love what I've been seeing out of the Patriots. And then the last team I have on the tiers, and if someone said like, "Hey, you have to say who you think the best team in the league is," it's crazy because it's the same team that I had in Week 7. And if I'm being honest, I didn't know if this would stick. I still say it's Indianapolis at 8-2. In my opinion, they have the best player in all football right now, Jonathan Taylor. I did a short on him. He has he has 1,200 yards, he has so many touchdowns, and he is playing such special football. In my opinion, that rivals the Barkley season that we had last year, which might get me killed, but he's playing so good. The burst he has on him is crazy. You really do forget how fast Jonathan Taylor is. I know they were on bye this week, but oh my God. And then what have we been getting out of Daniel Jones? Of course, in like the first half of the year, he was really, really good. But we started to see a little bit of regression. But even then, he's still been clutch. He's been in that Falcons game. He got a huge play on in the fourth quarter to even get it to OT. And then in OT, he hit absolute beauty Tyler Warren to basically wrap the game up. And then, of course, that defense side of the ball has a lot of guys that I really love. In my opinion, they have the best secondary in the league when healthy. In Mooney Ward, who, by the way, it was the anniversary of his daughter dying, I want to say 2 days ago. And poor guy is just absolutely going through it. I cannot imagine the pain of that. When he was on the Niners, it was very obvious it just affected his psyche. He needed time off from the team. And even we saw in his like Instagram stuff, he was just like expressing how much pain and how much grief he was in. I hope he finds some peace. Anyways, we got way, that's just something that I think needed to be said, because I feel like so often people who watch sports really do forget that these guys are just humans too. Anyways, whenever he comes back from the concussion that he suffered a few weeks ago, Sauce Gardner, and Kenny Moore form like the best secondary in football, and it's not particularly close. Not to mention the fact that they have one of my favorite players, Cam Bynum, manning the skies. It's just, there's so much talent on both sides of the ball with this team. Really good offensive line play. They seem like a team that's just poised for January. They're gonna just be one of those teams where you need to pray for Daniel Jones to have a bad game to realistically like have a good shot at this team, especially when they welcome Buckner back too. I don't know if they would win the Super Bowl, right? Because I think seeing Daniel Jones hoisting Lombardi Trophy is just not something for my brain to be mentally ready at yet. But I think I would just be denying the obvious when it comes to saying if this team isn't top 3, or I saw, by the way, Tom Brady's power rankings didn't have them in the top 10. To which I don't know if Tom just hasn't commentated a Colts game, so he hasn't seen it for his own eyes, or he just doesn't like the Colts, which is fair. So he played against them for like 20 years. So if he doesn't like him, Peyton Manning rivalry, all that, maybe he's just rage baiting him. I wouldn't be surprised. He is a petty guy, and you know what? That's what made him really good at football. But that is all for the show. It's a little bit shorter than it's a little bit shorter than usual. I want to thank you guys all so much for listening. Again, apologies about the coughing. I'm going to try and edit all of it out, but if any of it does come through again, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully my voice will be clear, and I'll be back home to record on Friday. Skies will be a lot more sunny. It has been a pleasure to be with you guys, and I'm looking forward to that pod on Friday.